Welcome to Business Success Tips, where you learn to make more money in less time and have a lot more fun. I'm your host, Paul Sanneman. I'm founder of Contractor Staffing Source. We help contractors build great teams. Guest today is Chris Anderson from 𝗲𝗂𝗄𝗧. Okay, Chris, what does 𝗲𝗂𝗄𝗧 do?
Yeah, what does applause do? As in the name, we applaud your frontline staff, and we try to supercharge them to think more like owners. So when they're out there in the field interacting with your customers, they're doing exactly what you would do. And we do that by means of creating visibility into their performance, as well as rewarding them when they meet certain expectations that the company has. So you can further fuel your growth through kind of a service-led growth perspective.
Okay, now one of the issues, especially for smaller companies, when I ask them what the KPIs are for their service staff, they go, "What's a KPI?"
Yeah, that's often kind of a starting point, is identifying what a KPI is, key
Yeah, what
performance
is that?
indicators. Yeah, key
Right.
performance indicators are things that we can measure within any environment within our company of a specific role that gives us a good insight into whether or not the person in that role is, executing to our expectations. And this could be a number of different things regarding the qualitative side of the work that they're doing, or maybe the quantitative side of being efficient in the way that they do things. So ultimately, it's deciding what those metrics are, being able to track them, report on them, and potentially reward on them if they hit the expectations.
So how do you go about developing, let's say a guy has an HVAC company or roofing company, how do you develop the KPIs for the service staff and
Well,
reward them?
often, yeah, oftentimes, if they're using some kind of a CRM or some kind of
Mhm.
management tool internally, a lot of the data is accessible within these environments. So first and foremost is we'll see if there's an integration that we can build within the existing CRM. And then identify the things that are going to move the needle the most for you. We've done kind of our own research and development and identifying some of the things that move the needle the most for HVACers, for roofing, and they're pretty consistent, right? Jobs completed is an easy one to identify. How many jobs are you completing within a given time frame? The time that you're on site, or the time that it takes you to complete any one of those jobs. There's a lot of variability there depending upon what team you're on. But it's funny how many universal, KPIs or data points that we can use to really measure the success of anybody on the team there. But that's usually first step is we'll go to your CRM, we'll go to existing databases, see if we can build out an integration where we can pull that data out and then create some visibility for the guys that are being measured so that they know, hey, what's expected of me? Where am I at today? Which is kind of a big gap in a lot of systems right now. And what reward is there if I'm able to meet that expectation?
Now, how do you, I'm going to, for lack of a better term, inspire frontline people to care? I
Yeah,
can't think of a better way to put it.
that's exactly what we're trying to do, right? As a frontline worker, oftentimes they're pretty isolated from the rest of the team, right? They're out in the field, they're doing the job, they don't get a whole lot of team interaction, so there's not that camaraderie usually that just fuels and energizes them to do a great job. Usually, what we see is that there's this idea of, hey, I'm just going to check the box. I'm going to get what I need to get done, and I'm going to go home for the rest of the day. I'm not going to put, extra effort into the job unless there's something in it for me. So the first thing that we did is identified where that existing gap is that gets a technician to start to care. And what we did was we took a look at a business owner. Why does the business owner care if the service is great? Why does the business owner care if it results in, say, a Google review? Well, because it creates revenue opportunities for them, right? As a
Mhm.
business owner, that's what drives and
Right.
fuels us, is everything that we're focuses on is somehow around keeping revenue or gaining more revenue. And it's no different for a technician. We just have to kind of flip the mindset there to be more bonus led when they meet certain expectations. So that's the whole idea around this reward system. Now, you have to be really careful about the reward system because there's a number of different ways that you can do it that are less effective than others. And what we found is the majority of home service businesses, they have incentives in place, they have bonuses in place, but there's not a whole lot of understanding or visualization from the technician's end. Sometimes it's not happening as frequently or as consistent as we would like it
Mhm.
to. They run a monthly report, and they add maybe $100 to your paycheck, but there's no visibility there for the technician to understand, hey, I got an extra $100 because I did X, Y, and Z. So you're giving out bonuses, but you're not driving behaviors. And that's where consistency and frequency really have the biggest impact over getting the technician to care about the service. Is we want dopamine hits when they're doing the thing that we want them to do. So what we did is
it works good for video games, right?
Right, exactly. Video games, social media, you get your thumbs up, you get your heart, you get the comment, you get that jolt, that dopamine hit of, oh, wow, I want to do that again because of how it made me feel. So that's the same psychology that we're trying to create here. So we've built downloadable apps that are similar to kind of a Venmo or Cash App environment. That's one, tracking all of the different KPIs or the key performance indicators that we use to measure a technician's success. But when they hit a certain expectation, it's an instant gratification where we send out a bonus to them that they can immediately cash out to their bank account. And that one bonus is tied to a specific initiative within the company that's aligned with some kind of business objective. So now they know why they got the money. They know what they need to do to get the money again. So now you're starting to condition behaviors because these are little drip campaigns that are happening in their day-to-day of, cha-ching, oh, I just got $5 because I got a Google review. Man, that makes me feel great. Cha-ching, just got $50 because I had a good driver safety record, right? So now that we're doing that on a more frequent basis, we're getting them to think like a business owner, whereas they're looking at every service or every action as an opportunity to gain more money.
It sort of like makes it almost like a video game, right? I mean, why are kids addicted to video games? Because they're addicted to the drugs that it creates, right?
Yeah, the dopamine hits that they get for collecting loot, or exactly.
Yeah, so I've noticed, when I was doing coaching, I used to use the example of training a mouse to run through a maze, right? And getting him to do behavior. Well, if the mouse runs around and you drop food on him like 2 minutes after he does something right, and you shock him a minute and a half after he does something wrong, the mouse just gets confused. He does not learn how to change his behavior. But I would say clearly the time between the positive and negative reinforcement, literally in today's, has to be minutes, because we're so used to playing games or whatever. We get likes, we get 10 more points, whatever it is. So we've sort of trained our systems to have no patience. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the system, especially in the younger generation that's accustomed to all of this instant gratification and instant access to information, we have a limited amount of time to even grasp their attention, right? The average attention span of somebody's anywhere from 5 to 10 seconds. So that's really the power of these instant gratification rewards that are happening in real time. There's also this element of frequency, right? I mean, as we look at kind of a marketing campaign, the more impressions we get, the better chance we get to change the behavior of a customer to start to buy our service. If we send one email out every couple of months, it might do something, it might have an impact. But if they're seeing us every day, every other day, and an issue comes up with their HVAC system, then they know who to call because they've been seeing us so regularly as a form of impression. So that's the same methodology that we're trying to use here, is trying to create more frequency there.
Playing the other point of view, I know a lot of people that are afraid to do that. I mean, let's say they can send an email every day, every week, with AI capabilities. We can send them every 10 seconds. It doesn't matter. I mean, there's no longer a limit of how many we can send and how good they can be and how fast that we can send them. But some people go, I don't want to send any, I'm just going to piss off the client. I don't want to bug them, So how do you, that line between irritating somebody and gaining somebody's trust and confidence, how do you play that game?
Yeah. So dynamically. So there's a lot of things like post-service that we can ask of a customer, right? We can get some feedback or some insight from how the service went. We could potentially ask them for an upsell. We could ask them for a referral, a Google review. There's a lot of things that we don't want to bombard them with, because ultimately we only have, again, a limited amount of time to capture insights from our customers. So the idea that we try to implement is, one, we put guidelines on how frequently we can send out messages to our customers, asking them for things that are going to benefit the company. And then internally, we've built more of a dynamic system to recognize the best opportunity to convert on something meaningful for the company. And I'll give you an example of that. So our system is first going to prioritize asking for a Google review as a means to measure the technician's qualitative success. If we don't get a Google review that first time, potentially on the next time, we've learned that, okay, we didn't get a Google review this time. Maybe we should just ask for an internal rating instead, so we can at least get some value out of this interaction with the customer. If they leave us a high rating that's internal, we can then prompt them for potentially a referral at that point. But it doesn't make sense for us to prompt a referral or an upsell for somebody that had a poor experience with us. So it's all about being very intentional about the frequency that we ask customers for things, but also being very dynamic in the way that we ask things to ensure that we get something out of that interaction, and we don't just overload them with things that they don't want to do in the first place. So that's on the customer end of things. On the technician or just the frontline worker end of things, we can ping them as often as we want to, and it's probably within our benefit to do so, because the things that we're telling them are little dopamine hits, right? It's not something that we're asking of them. It's hey, we're fueling you throughout your day to stay excited about the work you're doing.
Now, the question I have is when is it too much? I mean, you're starting to email. Let's say you've got a customer, you use HVAC or roof or whatever they did. How often, when do you cross that line between being interested and being irritating?
Yeah. It's usually what we find is after a service is completed, is a great time to ask. And because we're not frequently going out and providing these services on a regular basis, I would say after every service is a great opportunity and a great cadence to use in order to get some feedback from a customer or to get something from that customer, because they're having a completely new experience every time that you're coming to visit them. Right? You're fixing, the heater one day, maybe you're coming the next day to fix the AC unit, right? It's a completely different experience that merits and justifies outreach to determine how we did, right? Because we want to improve as a company. We want to get that qualitative feedback that we can tie back to the technicians or the frontline workers to reward them. So
Well,
with
how
those
many
that
is
are
it, like one time, three times? I'm thinking of, you go, whatever, change your or something, and you start getting these texts. I'm sure it's texts, not emails, right? And most of them
yeah, that's an interesting concept. I would say once every couple of weeks or once every specific service. If you're going back to do a reservice, doesn't make sense. We usually have like a service code filter that says, hey, for reservices, for inspections, for this, that, or the other, doesn't make sense for us to pester the customer at this point. It's usually a value added service that we've just provided and completed. And anywhere from like a weekly to a bi-weekly cadence, if it is a recurring system that's happening, is definitely within the means of not
Okay.
bugging the customer overly.
Now, what about somebody went out and they didn't buy for whatever reason? Do you follow them up or do you give up? I mean, how do you keep in touch with people that said no without upsetting them?
Yeah, that's a little bit out of like Plaza's direct wheelhouse. Really, what we're about is the employee engagement side of things. So, although we
I
are
see.
touching on some of like the review capabilities and we can generate reviews for you, it all stems back to whether or not it's a measure of the technician's performance or the service worker's performance, right? The Google review is a good indicator of qualitative, sentiment that the customer has. But when we get into more of like the marketing space where we're creating specific campaigns around
Mhm.
trying to re-engage a customer that is lost, that's not something that we do. However, I do think it stems back to this idea of drip campaign of always being present. If a customer is lost due to whatever reason, or we didn't win them in the first place, is having some kind of method to where we can keep our brand, in their face, at least on a monthly cadence, I think is going to be very beneficial, because at the time that they need us, they're going to remember that brand and call in that time of need, because we have been, periodically messaging them and creating
Right.
those impressions.
So if you've been able to change employees' behavior, can you give me some examples, not name the company, but specific things
Yeah.
where they were doing X and now they're doing Y because of your intervention?
Yeah, absolutely. So one easy metric to measure is Google review production, right? In our opinion, asking for a Google review doesn't necessarily take a lot of effort, right? That's not the hard part. What we
Mhm.
find is the hard part is influencing the behavior of a worker to elevate the quality of their work So they create more 5-star experiences that then lead into a 5-star review. So example of this is a home service company that was doing about, I think 30,000 services. Beforehand, they were just sending out a text message asking for a review, and they converted about 181 Google reviews on about 30,000 total services.
Wow,
The
that's not
next,
much.
not a lot, and that's usually pretty customary. 2 to 3% conversion on those that actually open the message. That's usually what you can expect. But when they transitioned to our system, what happened is the technicians started to care, right? Because every review now meant $5 extra in their pocket. So what happened is the quality of service started to elevate to where they knew that that message was going to go out, and they knew if a 5-star review came in that they were going to get $5, $10, whatever it was. So they started to take better notes in the CRM, letting the customers know, hey, this is everything that I did down to the detail, so that I did everything that we needed to do to make sure you had an awesome experience. They were shaking the customer's hand. They were, locking the doors behind them. They're taking their shoes off to accommodate customer requests. All the things that we want the technicians and these service workers to be doing when they're interacting with customers. But now they were incentivized to do so, to a point where 100 or on 30,000 services one month, they did about 181 reviews. On the next month, when they implemented the system, they did over 1,300 reviews on the same amount of services, about 30,000 services total. So significant impact, about a 7x increase in the amount of Google review conversion, just by adding a little carrot to every service that's done by a service worker. So
Now, how does that drop to the bottom line? I mean, Google reviews are nice. They're a good thing to have, but how does the customer, excuse me, the client, the guy who's doing the service, owns the company, have more revenue by you changing the behavior of their technicians? What's that look like?
yeah, it definitely depends on the industry and what kind of segmentation you have, whether you're going after more commercial space, more residential space. But ultimately, Google reviews are going to have an
I think he lost his internet. There we go. So can edit this out, but Chris, you there? Hello.
Paul, are you still there?
Yeah, we can edit that out. You lost your internet,
Okay.
so
Okay, no worries.
start over.
So yeah, there's a few different places where Google reviews are going to have an impact on the expansion and growth of your business, because Google reviews by themselves don't do anything, right? But if we utilize them in a way that's going to benefit us, there's 3 avenues that we can take here. One is going to be local SEO, or search engine optimization. Essentially, what this means is that if you have a high enough count of reviews, a good quality of reviews, and a consistency of those reviews, you're showing up organically in the searches of those that are in your service area, right?
Okay.
So not costing you anything, but because your technicians are providing a great service, ultimately it's leading to better customer experiences. Those experiences can now leverage your SEO optimization and make sure that you're showing up in organic searches for those that are searching for HVAC services or roofing
Right.
services in my area. The
Right.
next way that that's going to help is just in the screening process of what the customer buying experience looks like. 88% of all consumers, before they make a buying decision within a home service environment, are going to look at Google, meaning they're going to screen you out based upon what the peers are saying about the services that they've received over time. So even if this opportunity doesn't come via Google, Google is still going to be used to determine whether or not the experiences of other customers is going to be what I experience with you.
Mhm.
And oftentimes it's going to be a major buying decision for a lot of folks. The other part is just paid search, right? You can pay and market all you want, but ultimately, if your reputation isn't in good standing, ultimately you've got a few problems at place, right? Either the service that you're providing isn't great because you can't get those quality reviews, or you're not asking for those reviews, so that paid search is actually going to convert for you. So again, the idea behind the Google reviews is to fuel your SEO, to give you better reputation management, and allow for your paid search or your paid ads within Google to be more effective, because you've got a reputation that backs that paid search.
Now, another question. Do people, let's say you get $5 bonus if you get it done 5 minutes faster. Have you actually been able to reduce the time it needs to do something because of your conditioning?
Reduce, can you expand on that a little bit?
Well,
Reduce the
let's
time to do
say
what now?
I'm doing a repair, right? And I've got, an hour to do it. Because I can do it in 45 minutes. So have
Yep.
you been able to improve performance, that is, bigger, better, faster, through this kind of reinforcement of the technicians?
Yep, absolutely. And I'll give you a specific example of this. Driver safety scores. So driver safety is top of mind for a lot of home service businesses. One, because their people are in these vehicles and they want to make sure that they're safe and they're protected. Two, they're an asset for the company. These trucks, they need to be taken care of so that they can get a lot of value out of them for the
Mhm.
future. And three, insurance premiums, right? Insurance premiums
Right,
go up the less safety and the more accidents that you're
right.
having. So huge expense, and oftentimes is normally tracked within a fleet of maybe 10 to 20 trucks at minimum. So what happened was we had a group that was it was an HVAC group that had a lot of these trucks, and they were having high premiums because of the accidents that they were getting in, and they were
Mhm.
tracking all of these metrics, but it wasn't transparent to the technician. There was no reward for doing anything specific. So ultimately, the benefit was just knowing how safe their drivers were and not necessarily conditioning behaviors. So what they did was we integrated with this driver safety system, and we were
Mhm.
able to display those scores to the technicians in real time. And then we put a caret next to a specific score that we wanted them to hit. Prior to this, they were at anywhere from 70 to 80 as their driver safety score, and nobody in the history of them tracking it had above a 90. Within the first month of us activating this tool, they had 50% of all of their fleet above a 90 in driver safety scores.
Wow, that's amazing.
So significant
Is
improvement
that
over a
like,
short period
because
of time.
my friend of mine got a call from an insurance company who said, well, we'll reduce your rates if you carry your phone in your car and we can track where you're going. Does that happen these days?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The insurance companies are always looking for ways that they can track the safety and keep these guys accountable because they
Mhm.
don't want accidents either. That means they're having to pay out their
Right, right.
claims, right? So they're incentivized to make sure that you guys are driving safe, because they're going to save money on the deal, which means they're much more inclined to reduce your insurance premiums if you can show and corroborate that your team is driving safely. So
And
yeah,
so
that
there's
does happen.
methods now, if you carry your phone, you can literally say, did he exceed the speed limit? Did he not exceed the speed limit? There's ways of tracking whether you're obeying the rules or not, right?
Correct. Yeah, there's a number of different driver safety tools out there. One, you can use the technician's phone in order to, gauge braking speeds, speeds while on, specific highways, idling, et cetera. And there's also tools that you can implement into the truck itself, where they've got cameras, they've got systems that engage and then produce that data into, online environment where you can see in real time those kinds of metrics. And oftentimes they produce scores, right, based upon the safe
Mhm.
driving, the low braking, the low idling, et cetera. So yeah, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you manage the fleets better.
Interesting. So, Chris, if people are interested in making their technicians perform better, how do they get in touch with you and what does it cost?
Yeah, so you can reach us at applaushq.com. That's our website. Learn a little bit more about us and the environments that we serve. Cost is going to be a flat rate depending upon which package you choose. We have a very, low cost, kind of light scorecard environment where you can see basic metrics and those KPIs or key performance indicators, all the way up to kind of the Ferrari of our product, where you can
Mhm.
start to attach bonuses to each of these KPIs. You can create competitions around those KPIs for specific cadences. And we can have a number of different customer interactions post service where we can gather information that's one going to help you grow the business on reviews, referrals, and upsells, but also a great indicator of technician performance out in the field. That flat rate's going to range, anywhere from about $249 a month and that's a monthly price of an annual cost, all the way up to $600 a month, and it's on a per location basis.
And that's per person or per company?
Per location. So location being defined as your we usually use Google My Business profiles as the definition of what a location is because we're prompting on those profiles.
Mhm.
So however many Google review profiles you have is the
So if you
unit
have
of
three
measurement.
offices or two offices, it's not by truck, it's by office, right?
Correct, by office.
Cool. Well, thanks for appreciate. I mean, we're helping trying to get people improve their behavior. And I think you've got a way to do it because, we've all been programmed, whether we like it or not, to the more dopamine we get, the better we perform, whether we want to
Yeah.
do that or not. And I think you've figured out a way to actually make the job more fun and more productive and less boring, which is going to help everybody out. So I think that's
And
great
that,
insight.
and that's the metric that we didn't talk about is what's the impact for your team, right? What does that
Yeah.
mean? Technicians are staying longer, is satisfaction improved? We usually see a huge uptick in both customer retention and technician retention, right? Because we've gamified their environment, right? We've created
Mhm.
these opportunities for them to gain more money. So apart from fueling growth and fueling those opportunities for new revenue, there's this idea of keeping those of your A players in
Right,
seat
because turnover
longer.
is incredibly expensive, especially in that industry.
Absolutely. Yeah. I figure, it's about, 20 to $25,000 per technician that it costs you when you lose somebody and have to replace them,
Yeah, it's
depending
huge.
upon your industry. So huge expense for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, Chris, I appreciate being here. And if you want to motivate your employees, I think Chris has the way to pull it off.
Thanks, Paul.